Greetings to all of you viewers of Equinoxe television. It's 6 p.m. by studio clock, and it's time for the news. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our major story is right away. It starts Tuesday for militant supporters and sympathizers of the Manidem and his endorsed presidential candidate Professor Maurice Kamto. He has been sidelined from the presidential race. The petition of Professor Maurice Kamto against Elekam was this afternoon rejected by the Constitutional Council presided over by the Judge KINANG Derrick. Since the verdict, there has been an unusual calm in most major cities in Cameroon. Can this be a sign of worry, uncertainty, and also of disappointment? Our reporters got reactions from Cameroonians shortly after the verdict of the Constitutional Council today. We bring to you what they think in this news edition. And again, Yaoundé, Douala, and other main cities like Bafoussam today have been heavily militarized before and after the verdict on the petition of Professor Maurice Kamto. In this edition of the news, we take you to Yaoundé, or the Yaoundé Congress Hall, where the Constitutional Council has been sitting. We bring to you details of all the decisions taken so far, the heated debate between Professor Kamto's lawyers and the Judge KINANG Derrick, and how it has been happening at the Congress Hall since yesterday. So stay with us for details and more. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for being with us. We just told you a while ago that the candidacy of Professor Maurice Kamto has been rejected by the Constitutional Council, and the Constitutional Council, we said, has this afternoon rejected Professor Maurice Kamto's appeal, deeming it unfounded. That is the reason the Constitutional Council gave the audience. The Manidem candidate, the main opposition leader, will therefore be unable to take part in the October 12 presidential election, everything being equal unless other options will be considered. The Constitutional Council confirmed the first invalidation pronounced on July 26 by the Electoral Council. This verdict is final somehow, as the decisions of the Constitutional Council are not subject to any appeal. Tuesday's decision, which was done today, fueled fears of civil unrest and increased the likelihood of another victory for President Paul Biya. Security forces were deployed around the convention center. That was at the Congress Hall in the nation's political capital, where the Constitutional Council announced the verdict, and along main city roads in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. The day before, police officers fired tear gas and arrested dozens of people who were demonstrating in support of Professor Maurice Kamto before the verdict. And we also got information that some journalists have also been arrested today. We will be giving you details of what happened in Yaoundé today in subsequent news editions, precisely at 8 p.m. And still in relation to that, several Cameroonians based in Douala have expressed their disappointment at the ruling of the Constitutional Council over the petition of Manidem. Some of them we met in the streets of Douala today say the rejection of the candidacy of Professor Maurice Kamto was a clear sign of lack of democracy in the country. Cameroon, they however urged Professor Kamto to call for calm in the country. As at now, let's listen to some of them who spoke to our reporters, Manjikan Gabriel.
The Constitutional Council never took into consideration about the evidence that were presented during the hearings, because we had videos and the various documents which shows that Analyst was the legitimate president of the Manidem since 2018 to 2025 to now. But the Minister of Tourism Administration brought up someone called Mr. Yebga, which is not recognized because he was excluded from the party since. So I'm very disappointed about the verdict. Internationally, we see Cameroon as a country without democracy, because we talk about democracy, but we don't put it in place.
I'm really disappointed for this decision, because it's not the democratic decision. Our country needs more. I hope that Professor Kamto can do more to call all the Cameroonians to be quiet, to go to vote in October 2025.
It was clear that the candidature of Mr. Maurice Kamto was supposed to be rejected, because if you look at the environment, you look at the two cities, the main cities of Cameroon, you will understand that the two cities are covered with the men in uniform. And so it was glaring that the candidature of Monsieur Maurice Kamto was going to be rejected. It is very sad for us to hear this news, but we have to do with it.
We continue with news on what happened in Yaoundé today. Fireworks characterized by the first day of hearing of the pre-electoral petitions by the Constitutional Council. The confrontation of facts and arguments almost took a violent turn, yielding different results in each of the cases handled yesterday. Let's now have more of the highlights of what happened yesterday at the Constitutional Council with Babila Jonathan.
Day one of the pre-electoral hearing at the Constitutional Council of Cameroon was characterized by a heated legal battle between lawyers of the petitioners and those of Elections Cameroon. The debate took an upward trend when the lawyers of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM political party, notably Barrister Mustafa Ngwana, took turns to demonstrate the illegality of the decision of Elections Cameroon to reject the candidacy of Professor Maurice Kamto. After hours of a stiff legal battle, the hearing of Professor Maurice Kamto's petition was adjourned. The fate of the presidential aspirant of the African Movement for New Independence and Democracy, Manidem, attracting massive attention and provoking waves of tension across the nation and beyond, was shifted more than 24 hours ahead. Earlier, the lawyer of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM Councillor Leon Taylor Onana, told the president of the Constitutional Council that he should have stepped aside when he was dragged to court by the Cameroon Renaissance Movement over his participation in a political meeting that ended with a motion of support for President Biya's candidacy. He stated Article 23 of the 2004 law on the status of members of the Constitutional Council. The law stipulates that if any member of the Constitutional Council is involved in a court case, he should step aside and deal with the issue before returning to his position. And considering the fact that the case pitting the Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM and the president of the Constitutional Council is still pending before the Central Court of Appeal, Judge Clement Atangana should not be on seat. The petition filed by Leon Taylor Onana, asking for the disqualification of President Biya's candidacy over what he considers as illegal status of the party's leadership, including the national president Paul Biya, was rejected. In other cases, the Constitutional Council overturned the decision of Elections Cameroon and disqualified Ilez Zipang of the Progressive Movement. He did the opposite in the matter of Issa Chiruma Bakari's candidacy. The complaint brought against the candidate of the Cameroon National Salvation Front by his fellow comrades was dismissed, and Issa Chiruma Bakari's candidacy was.
Meanwhile, we told you in the headlines, viewers, that major cities in Cameroon, Douala, Yaoundé and Bafoussam have been heavily militarized since yesterday by security forces. Here in Douala, it was a calm and uncertain atmosphere at the Manidem and CRM head offices in Douala. That was Tuesday before and after the announcement of Professor Maurice Kamto's candidacy, which was rejected by the Constitutional Council. Our reporter Mala Glory made a stop over at the two head offices and tells us that they were heavily militarized.
While Cameroonians are anxiously waiting for the Constitutional Council to give its final verdict as far as candidates going in for the 2025 presidential elections are concerned, at the Manidem office here at Akwa Douala, it is a calm atmosphere and highly militarized, as you can see behind me. No vehicles have access into these streets, and it must be noted that military officers or security officers are also found in public places and junctions here in the city of Douala. It is now official as Professor Maurice Kamto will not be going in for the 2025 presidential race. The announcement was made later this afternoon by the Constitutional Council after rejecting his file as a candidate. At the Littoral Regional Office of the CRM, it is highly militarized by police officers and access has been denied. And back here at the Manidem office, military officers are still present and the access to the Manidem office has been barricaded. No one is allowed in. Militants are not present here except one person who we could meet made us to understand that the rest of the militants are in Yaoundé to follow the hearing by the Constitutional Council. It must be noted that security officers are present in most public places and junctions here in the city of Douala, such as Carrefour, Bepanda and Grand Moulin. Reporting from Manidem office, we are Tiofi Chenke and Mala Glory for Equinoxe TV.
Thank you, Glory. The situation has also been the same as our reporters on the ground in Yaoundé tell us. They tell us that at the Congress Hall where the Constitutional Council has been sitting, security has been very high there. And Vivian Tonfag, our reporter who is also in Bafoussam, tells us that there has been high security in most areas of Bafoussam as of today, Tuesday. And talking about more reactions, the rejection of the candidacy of Professor Maurice Kamto by the Constitutional Council president has sparked multiple reactions from artists, politicians, human rights defenders, and others. On their social media handles, they all in one voice condemned the verdict, describing the law as baseless and senseless. Immaculate Fogwe compiled those reactions from their social media handles and put together this report.
The exclusion of Professor Maurice Kamto from the presidential election has sparked strong reactions from various sectors of Cameroonian society. A Jesuit priest, Father Lado Lodovic, emphasizes that true change will begin with the opposition reclaiming the National Assembly. He warns that the Minat's reliance on falsehood will inevitably lead to the triumph of deceit in the presidency. Cameroonian artist Richard Bona questions the credibility and impartiality of Cameroon's electoral body Elecam and the Constitutional Council, suggesting potential electoral fraud and manipulation. Similarly, human rights defender and lawyer Barrister Agbo Bala calls for unity among opposition parties and presidential candidates, urging them to rally behind a consensus candidate. He stresses that the exclusion of Professor Maurice Kamto is not just a personal attack, but a deliberate attempt to discourage millions of citizens who aspire for real change. In a poignant reflection, screenwriter Jean-Pierre Bicolo questions why many Cameroonians will rejoice in Kamto's suffering, given that his only crime was wanting to be president. Bicolo notes that Kamto has been subjected to imprisonment, insults and humiliation, and argues that the hatred against him is a symptom of a deeper issue, a society that has been fractured and domesticated. Many Cameroonians are expressing their frustration and disappointment with the electoral process, questioning the credibility and impartiality of the Constitutional Council and Elections Cameroon Eleka.
And today's verdict was pronounced by the President of the Constitutional Council in the person of Judge Clément Atangana, who really is Magistrate Clément Atangana, the judge of the constitutionality of Cameroonian laws. The Electoral Council, whose decisions are among the most feared in electoral procedures, has been headed by Clément Atangana since its creation. The 84-year-old senior magistrate is making history for the second time since his appointment, that was in 2018. A profile of this figure of the Cameroonian justice system by reporter Cedric Chakutio.
When he's in office, we hold our breath and his verdict is final. Born on September 20th, 1941 in Gomezap in the Nyong and So division of the Central Region, Clément Atangana was the very first president of the Constitutional Council after its official establishment in February 2018. He joined the judiciary in December 1968 and rose through the ranks of the Cameroonian judiciary. First, President of the Court, Attorney General, President of the Court of Appeal, Supreme Court Councillor, full member of the judiciary, President of the National Commission for the Recognition of Votes for the Legislative and Presidential Elections, member of the United Nations Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, among others. Already retired, he will benefit from a presidential decree of February 7, 2018, as he is called upon to preside for a renewal 6-year term over the destiny of this institution composed of some 10 personalities. These wise men of the Republic, as they are called, are those entrusted with the delicate mission of monitoring the regularity of elections, referendums, and proclamation of results of electoral constitutions after having ruled on the compliance procedures. While his impartiality is often questioned, Clement Atangana, the indelible ink pen, will once again make history in 2025 as he did in 2018.
Thanks so much, Cedric. And now let's take our series of how Cameroon is faring today. And our series of Cameroon today, we take you to the Nyong and So division. Natives of Bembe, a village in the Nyong and So division, are calling on the government to construct a bridge which will serve as a link between the village and Barmayo, which is the headquarters of the division. For a native to leave Bembe, the village, to Barmayo, which could be covered within 30 minutes, they spend 2 days by water, which costs less and more expensive than road. In Cameroon today, we take you to discover the sufferings of inhabitants of the Bembe village in the Nyong and So division. Sumandi Kangibro.
River Yong is the natural boundary that separates Bembe village and Balmayo in the Yong and So division of the Central region.
Nous sommes à Bembe.
We are in Bembe, Zeng subdivision. On the right is Balmayo and left is Akonolinga. The fastest means to arrive in Balmayo is through the canoe, which is also the cheapest, with just 3,000 francs CFA. A canoe is the only means of transportation from Bembe village to Mbalmayo for those who will want to challenge River Yong. Using a canoe from here to Mbalmayo is at least 2 days on water. These are some canoes already getting bad. For someone who doesn't want to use a canoe, the person has to be courageous and be patient using the road, as it is a veritable nightmare. Traveling to Mbalmayo is very difficult for us. Going to Mbalmayo by road from here to Yaoundé is 4,000 francs CFA, while in Yaoundé you pay another bus to Mbalmayo. That if they made a bridge here, it will be easier for us to go to Mbalmayo. The population of Bembe village say they want the construction of a bridge which will bring a lasting solution to their sufferings.
Nous avons une très grande difficulté. Il faut contourner par.
We have a big challenge, which is the deviations we take to Yaoundé, and if you know how much we pay, each day the transport keeps increasing. Balmayo remains the main town for the people of Bembe. When they have to sign an official document, the headache is enormous. If you have a problem of signing your documents in Balmayo, how are you going to do? That is what is disturbing us. It costs a lot because you pay 2,500 francs on bike. A car to Kwabang is 2,000. Then a taxi to Mvan is 500 before paying another 1,000 to Mbalmayo. When you have a convocation at 8 a.m., it is sure to be postponed. Passing through Yaoundé in the Mfundi division to Mbalmayo in the Yong and So division, which is not far, the population of Bembe village are now asking, when will their own development come? Before, there was a ferry, which is now bad. We need a bridge. It's only a bridge that can bring development to Nzem. Look at our brothers at the other end. I could even live here to meet up with them, to even drink a bottle of wine, but I have to go round to Yaoundé, which is long. This is a 30-minute journey when I take a bike from here.
Prends la moto là ici avant 30 minutes.
While waiting for a bridge that will link them to Mbalmayo, the natives are now requesting that they should be linked to towns closer to them, which are easily accessible. We don't have any bridge, and this is a very big challenge for us, and we don't even want the affairs of Mbalmayo. Better we are linked to Mfu. What are we going to do in Mbalmayo? Akonolinga and Mfu are close to us. In the health domain, the Integrated Health Center of Kumasi has already been linked to Mfu in the Mefu and Afamba division. The health center which is in Kumasi is now attached to Mfu, which is in the Mefu and Afamba division. Since it was difficult to bring vaccines here, they were forced to attach us to Mfu. We don't even see elites here. We see them only when they have their events. The people of Bembe village are close to church, but very far from God, as the population go through difficulties to move to Mbalmayo, which is just a stone throw.
Thank you so much, Smart. And that does it for the first part of the news. Now let's meet our guests. Welcome back, viewers. Our guest tonight is Dr. KINANG Derrick FAI. He is a jurist and also a political analyst. Thank you so much, Doctor, for accepting to be our guest tonight. Now, the candidacy of Professor Maurice Kamto, the Manidem endorsed candidate, the main challenger of the regime in power at the moment, has been rejected a while ago by the Constitutional Council, and Cameroonians have been reacting differently. What was your immediate reaction after that decision today by the Constitutional Council?
Okay, thank you so much for having me again on Equinoxe TV. Like you rightly said, we just get information that the candidacy of Professor Maurice Kamto has been rejected by the Constitutional Council. That is the flag bearer for the party Manidem. Personally, the first reaction I have is I'm not really surprised. I'm not surprised for many reasons, but one of the main reasons why I'm not surprised simply because we know very well that we are in a political arena. And when we are in a political arena, and a difficult one like this that has to do with the supreme authority of the state, politicians bring all their cards and all their strategies to see into it that they eliminate whosoever can pose a threat to them. Added to the fact that when we go by the logic around the Constitutional Council, we see jurists and few jurists will tell you it is not a court as per se in the strict sense of it. So I see in it more of a political juridical body that most often at times takes decisions that are away from our understanding if we want to look at it just from the legal standpoint. So in a nutshell, my reaction is I'm not really surprised. I knew there was a possibility a thing like this can happen, for the simple reason that we are in the domain of politics, and in politics things like this are common.
Now, Dr. KINANG, we noticed that the hearing so far has been the longest and most disputed or debated. It began yesterday with a strong debate, a heated debate, and the verdict was finally passed today. Cameroonians have been following the event at the Congress Hall very keenly. Like, it's not very usual of Cameroonians. Why do you think most Cameroonians actually followed the event at the Constitutional Council?
Yeah, you are right when you say many Cameroonians took a lot of interest with the specific case of the candidate Maurice Kamto, and his case at the Constitutional Council took much time when compared to the others. I think there are quite a number of reasons that can be submitted to support this or to substantiate what is happening. Personally, going by the fact that when we look at the political landscape as it stands now, from normal observation, you will discover that he seems to be the candidate that stands as the immediate threat to the present system. He seems to be that candidate that stands as the candidate that can be considered as a potential contender to all the other candidates that are coming in.
And you also want to note the fact that the candidate, Professor Maurice Kamto, seems to be that candidate that is being watched by many Cameroonians, and even those that were not very much interested in politics have gained interest due to the actuality, the breaking news, and the attention that has been given to this particular candidate, be it by the media, content creators, bloggers, or whosoever. You discover that he has been able to put actuality around his person, and so it becomes very normal that one can begin to see things like this. And we also want to note that we are in a game of politics, and it is but normal. The candidate, Professor Maurice Kamto, from my own standpoint, from the analysis of those that are backing the incumbent, one can begin to observe that he seems to be the lone candidate they are seeing to be as that candidate that they must put down at all costs should they want to have an easier electoral process, though it is never too easy in the game of politics, especially when it concerns the supreme position. You might also want to consider the point of view of others who think that this attention might be simply because the candidate Maurice Kamto is that candidate that has succeeded to always create the buzz, like they put it, to draw the traffic around his person, and by so doing we can explain why there was that much attention to his person. Added to, I must note, the historicity of the candidate as to this particular election, which is the presidential election.
And now, Dr. KINANG, to this question, so many Cameroonians have been asking of air somehow. What is happening, or what happened yesterday and today? Can it be considered somehow as a national disappointment or a national jubilation, depending on who is considering what? How do you, as a Cameroonian, envisage the October presidential election without the main challenger, Professor Maurice Kamto?
Yeah, I will not say it's totally a national disappointment, neither is it a national jubilation, because whether we like it or not, there is a mass critique of Cameroonians that are celebrating the fact that the candidacy of Professor Maurice Kamto has not been retained. Same way we have a chunk of Cameroonians as well that are very much disappointed as to his candidacy that has been rejected by the Constitutional Council. So it's a situation in which we think celebrations as well as disappointments is found nationwide. But now, as to your worry aspect, that wish to know what October 2025, the October 12, 2025 elections, presidential election is going to look like. I'm part of those who strongly believe it's not going to have the fanfare that it was expected to have. Had it been Professor Maurice Kamto was going to go in. Remember, this is a candidate who from our observation would have been backed by two political parties. We are talking about the CR militants, and at the same time the militants of the Manidem party that endorsed Maurice Kamto as their candidate. So we are seeing a huge number of Cameroonians that will withdraw their interest and follow up as to the electoral game. And we might also want to note that being one of the main opposition leader, one is but certain that we are not going to have the same pressure that will be placed on the incumbent as it would have been the case had it been Professor Maurice Kamto was a contender. So personally, in my opinion, I see a situation in which the incumbent already has an advantage, and I will not be surprised if the incumbent wins the election. But as we must also note, we are in a political game. So many things can happen. But for now, one can be tempted to say the incumbent already has an advanced position with the absence of Professor Maurice Kamto, which in my opinion was a major contender had it been his candidacy sailed through with the case at the Constitutional Council.
Thank you, Dr. KINANG, for that insight. Before we go now briefly, can we say the government did all they could to sideline Professor Maurice Kamto from the October 12 polls?
Truly speaking, I don't know if I can say the government did all to sideline Prof. Maurice Kamto, because I'm not into the black box of the government to tell what are their strategies and the length to which they could go to sideline a major contender like Professor Maurice Kamto. But when you look at the cacophony and the historicity that has been all through this period of pre-elections, I want to strongly believe some members of the system, those that are in favor of the incumbent, they've played their political game wisely. They've played their political game with a lot of tactfulness. They've played their political game with a lot of determination. Reason being, the end result is what we have today. The candidate Maurice Kamto has been sidelined. So yes, we are in a game of politics. It is but normal that these things should happen. So I might want to go by the affirmative that they did what they could do to sideline the candidate, and they've succeeded. As to whether they did all is what I cannot tell, because I'm not in the black box of the CPGM strategy to know if they removed all their cards. One thing is certain, they removed the necessary cards that permitted them to sideline Professor Maurice Kamto from being a contender come October 12, 2025.
Thank you so much, Dr. KINANG Derrick FAI, for accepting to be our guest tonight on Talking Points. You are a jurist and also a political analyst. You are talking to us from Yaoundé. We heard that the town is so much militarized this evening, and there has been some uneasy calm. Hopefully everything gets to normal as soon as. Thank you again for accepting to be our guest tonight, and hope to have you some other time. Viewers, we thank you so much for always being with us. And our programs continue this evening. Equinoxe with Serge Alain comes up at 7 p.m. and the news in the French language comes up at 8 p.m. Like I told you, we will be giving you details of all what happened in Yaoundé and how the town Yaoundé is faring and other towns of Cameroon after the verdict of the Constitutional Council concerning Professor Maurice Kamto, Manidem, and Ilekam this afternoon. That was it for today. See you again tomorrow, same time. God willing. Bye-bye for now.